Welcome back to Awaken Stories, where we take ancient wisdom one story at a time and sit with it until it really opens up. Now, in our last explainer, we talked about the archer who draws the target after the arrow lands. You know, that intellectual trick of retrofitting meaning? Well, today we are going so much deeper. We're looking at a profound Hasidic tale from Osho's 1001 Tales. And Osho actually calls this one of the most wonderful stories he's ever come across. It's not about the tricks we play on others, it's about the masks we wear when we come back empty-handed from the real world, and what we're so incredibly afraid to admit we didn't find. By the end of this explainer, you're going to understand exactly why this story is a mirror for all of us.
Okay, I want you to imagine a city literally no bigger than a saucer. And the people who live there, the residents, they genuinely believe their tiny rooftops touch the sky. Just sit with that image for a second. It's totally absurd, right? It's kind of comical. But before it becomes devastatingly sad, it is just this funny, quiet picture of pure, localized delusion.
Section 1. The Saucer-Sized City. Delusions of Grandeur.
So, here we have this insanely claustrophobic city, completely consumed by its delusions of grandeur. The residents are absolutely convinced, without a shadow of a doubt, that they are the center of the universe. But eventually a little curiosity sparks, so they choose 3 men. These 3 seekers are sent out into the real world to find out what is true. It's an inciting incident driven entirely by arrogance, really. The city sends these guys out into the vast unknown, essentially just to confirm what they already think they know about the universe.
Section 2. The Search for Truth, Facing Reality.
Let's track how this journey actually builds. First, you have the departure. They are sent out with the full, confident backing of their tiny saucer city. Then comes the discovery. They travel far, they search long, and they finally step outside that saucer. Can you imagine the immense shock? They suddenly encounter a reality that is vast, terrifying, and infinitely complex. And then the return. They come all the way back, completely empty-handed. At least, empty-handed in the eyes of the city they left behind.
See, the reality they discovered out there was simply too vast, too real, and way too strange to carry back. You can't neatly package the infinite. It just couldn't be broken down into a quick little report or a simple thesis for the people waiting at home. The truth was literally just too big to fit inside a saucer.
Section 3. Hiding Behind the Mask, Fear versus Vanity.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is a very specific distinction Osho makes. When these 3 men return, they pretend they found exactly what everyone hoped they'd find. But, and this is crucial, this isn't them performing out of vanity. Performing is putting on an act to gain praise or feed your ego. What they are doing is hiding. Hiding is a fear response. It's shielding yourself from the terrifying unknown. They went out, they found something they completely couldn't explain, and the pretending is just a protection against having to stand there and say, I am still lost, and I have absolutely no idea what to do with that.
Priya and I were talking about the tradition this comes from, and it's so important to recognize it. The Hasidic tradition. It's a spiritual framework that uses parables precisely because some truths simply cannot be carried back in concrete concepts. The story format itself is the genius answer to the 3 fools problem. You can't explain the vastness you found, but you can tell a story about someone who couldn't explain it. It's a brilliant workaround for the limits of our own language.
Osho calls this one of the most wonderful stories because it leads right to this profound reality. Man is always pretending to be what he is not. When you really let that sink in, you realize this isn't just a quirky story about 3 fools in a saucer-sized city. This is the story of everyone. It's the story of you, and it's the story of me.
Let's ground this in our modern, everyday lives. Think about the massive, complex things we pretend to have completely figured out. We go out searching for enlightenment or perfect love, infallible meaning, or even just the absolutely right career. We go out looking, and when the reality of those things turns out to be messy or just too large to comprehend, what do? We come back and pretend we found it. We pretend we have all the answers, or we pretend the mystery doesn't exist at all, simply to avoid looking totally lost to the people waiting for us.
Section 4. The Third Fool's Secret, the Thinnest Mask.
This right here is the most deeply human part of the entire parable. While the first 2 fools seamlessly put on their masks and played the part, the third man was an anomaly. His mask was the thinnest. His eyes gave something away. He almost told the truth. He encountered the real, vast world, and for a split second he hesitated. He almost chose the raw, terrifying admission of being lost over the safe, comfortable performance of certainty. That almost, man, that is the most beautiful and tragic moment in the story.
So why didn't he?
Why did he stop and pull the mask back down over his face? Well, consider the social costs of the truth. He'd be disappointing a waiting, expectant crowd. He felt the absolute crushing pressure of their expectations. By telling the truth, he would be destroying the city's comfortable illusion. There is, in a very twisted way, a perceived kindness in giving people the answer they hope for. It's exhausting, sure, but it keeps the saucer city intact.
But this forces us to ask a massive question. What would it have cost the city if he had actually told the truth? If he had just stood there and said, "Guys, there is no edge to the sky and we are not the center of anything." Yes, it absolutely would have cost them their comfort. But think about what it would have opened up. What profound, terrifying, beautiful freedom might have been unleashed if just one person admitted they came back empty-handed.
Section 5. What are you hiding? The final question.
Let's break this down into 3 steps for ourselves. First, acknowledge the disorientation of the real world. Second, recognize the sheer exhaustion of performing certainty. And third, admit that you are still out there, searching. I'll be completely honest with you here. I've done exactly what the third fool did. I remember coming back from a period of genuine disorientation, a real loss I experienced. And when people asked how I was doing, I gave them the polished summary. I performed absolute certainty. I gave them the neat little lessons I supposedly learned, rather than admitting that I was still lost, still out in the vast world completely without a map. And let me tell you, that pretending, it is exhausting.
So I want to leave you with this final, vital question. What are you pretending to have found that you are still quietly searching for? Think about that today. Take off the mask, just for a moment. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and we will see you next time.